Happy Saturday. We're here
We're here on a Saturday together.
together. It's awesome. All right. Welcome to the Learner Center Collaborative Podcast. I am your host, Katie Martin, and joined by the one and only Sandy Cima. Sandy is the Director of People and Business Operations at Learner Center Collaborative, the mom of two darling elementary age kiddos, and one of the most amazing humans that I am fortunate to work with. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you, Katie. I'm excited to be here. You are too sweet, and you are equally one of the most amazing humans I know. So,
Well, I wanted to spend Saturday afternoon with you chatting a little bit. It's you get to work at Learner Center Collaborative and do this work and work with educators, but you've never been a teacher, site administrator. So I really wanted to just get your perspective as a parent today and really think about knowing the work we do in education, how important parents are, and just wanted to see one of many experiences and what we can all learn from that. But first, let's start with a bit of background so people can get to know you and who you are. Why don't you share some of the key experiences that have shaped you into who you are and where you are today?
yeah. So first and foremost, I am a mother of two children. I have a 6-year-old who is in first grade, and I have a 9-year-old who is in fourth grade. So they are, a big chunk of what I do my day to day, obviously. And then I have been at Learner Center Collaborative for many years. I started my career, though, way back in the day, working for uh, a web-based company that provided website support and just different resources for health and human services realm across the country. And so I really started in the area of working with people who were in compromised buckets, the elderly, veterans, the homeless population, you know, children 5 and under, and helping to collate and bring resources to them through a web portal. And so that started my experience in working with communities that were potentially underserved.
Mhm.
From there, I started working at a top university here in the Bay Area, and I worked with medical students, and that was a really eye-opening experience to see medical students, to have been to have been somebody on the other end of receiving medical care, and then to kind of go into the ground level of medical students and really see their path was just such a wonderful, cool experience. And then from there, I joined an ed tech company, and that kind of pulled me back into the lower end of education, the K through 8 education arena. And I did ed tech for many years and wore many hats through ed tech, and then, kind of morphed into the role that I'm in today at LCC, where I run everything behind the scenes so that, you and your team can go out and actually do the work.
That is exactly it. Everything behind the scenes. When I think of you as a generalist, right? Like being able to figure it all out, um, take a lot of different problems, navigate things, and you've been able to morph in a lot of different roles based on your ability to just figure things out. Like, where did that come from?
And very true, if I'm very truthful, it came from like pretty early on in my career, having like a lack of confidence, right? Just not really doubling down or trusting myself with any one thing. So I thought, let's just spread myself thin. But also with that came a curiosity. And once I got into really understanding that I could spread myself across multiple things, I wanted to do more. When I worked in certain jobs where I just did one thing, I found myself really bored,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that's where a little bit of that lack of confidence came in, because I was like, this is really boring. Am I in the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? What should else should I be doing? So when I started in ed tech, it was a very new world for me. And so I thought, let me just put my hands in as many different things as I can. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years, just really being a generalist. And I find that I'm never bored, Katie, never. There's never a day to where my job is boring, because my job is never the same. Every day is different. And I've learned everything from a stock valuation for, an ed tech startup all the way up to education policy and the things that are going on, locally and everything in between. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit of like trying to mitigate being bored, but also trying to learn as I go, right? And really gather as much information as possible because I don't know where I belong, right? I've never felt like I belonged in one arena of business. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just be in all of them. Let's put my foot in all of them.
Yeah, and I think it's been so valuable, right? Because even as we think about educators and whoever's listening to this podcast, like just because you learned a certain skill 20 years ago doesn't mean that's all you're going to need to know. So the fact that you're willing to learn and figure things out and be in a space, like you said, of just curiosity, someone who gets to work with you, that is one of the most valuable traits and such a necessary skill in a small nonprofit organization. So it's very helpful, and I'm glad you're not bored.
I am not bored. I'm not bored. And I also, one thing I think I did realize along my path was I've been at like I said, a top university with 30,000 employees all the way down to the handful of employees we have today. And I really realized that my sweet spot is in that smaller realm. I like to make connections, whether it's with employees or whether it's with our partners. I like to make that personalized connection. And when you are one of 30,000, you literally know the six people that sit around you, and that's it. You don't get to know anyone else.
Yeah.
That wasn't for me. Like I wanted to be able to make connections with and know my staff and know the people that I work with.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we think about some of the things you said. We want our kids to be successful. We talk a lot about this as parents, but some of the things that you talked about that I hear what means success to you is being able to not be bored, being able to be in a place where you're constantly learning, you can build relationships, and you can do something that is meaningful. What else am I missing about like a job that you want or what it means to be successful kind of in your career?
I also think that I think happiness is underrated, in education at any level, right? But also in your career, because you can have everything you want in a job and be miserable. And is it how we spend our time is how we spend our life. And at the end of every day, if you've spent 8 to 10 hours doing a job that works well for you and you make a ton of money or all of the things that you thought you wanted, but you're like unhappy when you leave every day, like, is it worth it? Right. And I think the same thing for education, you know, if my kids specifically, if they are not loving going to school, they're not going to be engaged. They're not going to want to go. And while I think we all have days, even if we love our job, that we're not happy at the end of the day, it's not a continual happy spectrum. But I think it's really being able to live the majority of your career and your educational experience in that like positive, happy realm.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that when I'm happy at work and when things are working and I feel like I'm productive and I feel like I'm contributing, then I'm much more happy in everything else. And I can show up for my family in better ways, and vice versa. When things are going well and the kids are happy, it translates. But too many people end up spending their time, like you said, 8 to 10 or more hours a day miserable. And I just don't understand it.
Mhm.
So when we think about your goals for your own kids, they're
Mhm.
in elementary school, but a lot of people are thinking about, like, gosh, what does it mean to be successful? What do you want for your kids and how are you setting them up? What does success mean as you are thinking about raising your kids, and what are your goals for them?
I obviously a mom of young kids. I have a lot of friends that have kids, and in my friend group, we often talk about this, like, what does success look like? And to each one of us, it's different. And I try not to judge, when people are like, I want my kid to be a professional baseball player, or whatever. For me, it really comes down to I want my kids to be good people. At the end of the day, I want them obviously to be happy in what they're doing, but I want them to be good people. And I think if you are genuinely happy in what you're doing, that's going to roll into you for the most part, just being a good person and returning that happiness into the world. If they don't get the best scores on tests, if they don't play the best in the game, like, did they high five their teammate and did they help pick somebody up off the ground that got knocked over? That's what I care about.
Hmm.
Right. And so, love my children, but they're not going to be professional athletes. She's not.
never know. Things can change.
But what we talk about at night at bedtime is like, what good did you do today? Did you help a friend today? Like, and I often ask him, what made you happy today? And so we talk about the moment that made them happy. And I think it's really it's been helpful for me too to watch them evolve and go through their processes, especially my daughter who's in fourth grade, right? She's starting to get into the realm of other fourth grade girls, and boys are coming in her purview, right? And so we talk every night about what made you happy. And a lot of times it's her friends. A lot of times it's something that happened in her school. But like that's, just having raising good people is what's important to me.
Yeah. And I think, Abby and Zach are in high school, a little bit older, and I totally agree. And as they are starting to get into high school years, I also think about a lot about their next steps and being able to leverage their talents. So
Hmm.
happy people, engaged humans, but what are their talents so that they can have jobs and careers that they feel like they're contributing, that they're continually learning and doing things that are meaningful to them. I have no idea what that's going to be, but starting to see those like little inklings emerge of what's next. Yeah, I think that it's just being able to continually chart and navigate their own path based on their strengths and their skills. And like you said, being able to figure things out. Like, so
Yeah. And having your identity, right? Having your identity, especially at your kids' age, as they start to move on, like know who you are,
yeah,
right? Not only knowing who you are in education, but like just in your own self and your own, it's not even about your education or your career, but like who are you and what's important to you?
yeah,
Um, that's something that like mine are a little young, but we're starting those conversations with my daughter. But I think where, in my opinion, where parents can miss is by not encouraging identity and
hmm
not encouraging your kids to like just know who you are, right?
right. And that's where the confidence can come
Mhm.
from too. So I know that I developed more confidence once I got into education and started feeling like, oh, I found my place. I feel like that space of like my identity connects with the work I get to do and stuff that makes me happy. And being able to connect kids earlier to that, not necessarily as a career path, but that identity and confidence in who they are and where they're going, I think is incredibly important.
Agreed. Agreed.
So thinking about yeah, you said you have a lot of conversations with other parents, and what are some ways that you are engaged in your like education community
Mhm.
that are meaningful? What are some ways that your school kind of makes those connections that maybe other educators can say, oh, we do that and that's great, or shoot, there's a great idea, maybe we could try that.
Hmm. Yeah, we do. My son is in first grade, and I recently went back to the back to school night. And one of the things that his teacher does, and I thought it was so cool, is she does what's called mystery reader. And every week a parent gets to sign up to be mystery reader. And the kids don't know who it is. But all week long, it's on Fridays, and then all week long she drops clues about these people. This person's in construction. This person, loves to roller skate. Like all these different clues about these people, and that the kids have no idea who it is. And then on Friday, one of the kids' parents walk in. And what I love about that is obviously it gets parents a different parent
Mhm.
every week, and you can only do it once, right? Different parent every week in the classroom. So I love that opportunity, but also it builds this curiosity for the kids of like, oh, this person who does this thing, and I've got this picture in my mind, and oh, but this is actually what they look like. And then and then they just read a story to them. It's, they don't go into their background. And we do, a career day and a parent day. So people come in and talk about their careers. But I love that it sparks the imagination,
Mhm.
right? In a way that is tied to our community. That's what I love about it. And my son like came home last week and he was just like, "Oh my God, did you know Bentley's mom is a doctor?" Again, it wasn't necessarily about the career, but it was about Bentley's mom and and he had learned all these things about her throughout the week. And then when she walked in the door, everyone was like, "Oh my God!" Like, and he's like, "I thought men were doctors," And so he was just like really taken back by that curiosity of like, who is this male that's about to walk in my classroom? And when this mom walked in, everybody, the teacher said everyone was just kind of taken back by, oh my God, we didn't, I don't even think Bentley knew that his mom was coming in. So I think it's my school's really good at building curiosity with the kids in ways that help them understand their community. That's just one example of it. We do um, different projects throughout the community, and the kids build um, I think it was second grade, they built maps of
Mhm.
the community, huge maps. I mean, 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide maps of the community, and identified the different agricultural zones and urban and suburban, right? And then they went on a field trip in the community to kind of explore these different areas that they learned about, drew and created through different medias. But then they were actually able to take that out in the community and go on this kind of walking field trip tour of the community to like, this is what we
Yeah.
thought. This is what we're learning. And when you talk about something might be agricultural, well, nowadays that looks very different, right? Than I think a kid can imagine. And so that was a really cool thing my daughter went through, and I went on one of the walking field trips with her for a part of that. And it was a really unique experience to not only learn about our town, but also the way that the kids thought about our town and thought about the different industries in our town, and
Yeah.
how they portrayed that in these maps that they drew.
As you're talking, I'm like, why do we stop doing that in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, right? Because, like, I always show the engagement curve, that engagement goes down the longer kids are in school. And, like, that's what was popping in my head as you were talking, because why can't my ninth and 10th graders go explore the community and
Mhm.
start to see what businesses exist?
Yeah.
Why do we stop bringing parents in first grade to talk about their jobs when in ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, kids are starting to think about colleges they want to go to or industries they want to go to or military? There's many options post high school that kids are thinking about, and often we limit exposure to those different roles, or in my experience, instead of spending more time. It's like, oh, you got to study hard and get good grades, rather than, yes, let's study and learn, but also let's expand our school community. Let's go out and see what's happening in the world. Um, there's so much more opportunity for that.
Well, and our world is changing, and AI is very real, and college is changing, and jobs are changing, right? And so, especially for younger generations that are coming into a schooling system, by the time they're done 13 years later, the world is going to be a very different place. And how are you preparing kids for that, right? Because you're right. I think high school just jams. Got to go to college. You got to get these good grades. But as somebody who didn't get good grades in high school and didn't go to college for quite a while after high school, I still turned out just fine.
Pretty
Right?
darn good. Yeah.
I'm doing okay. And I think when I think back on my high school where Abby and Zach are, when I think back on like what they could have done to better prepare me, was because college was not an option for me right out of high school. I was out there just spinning. Like, what do I work? Like going out and just throwing in applications to anywhere that said hiring, because I didn't know any better.
Right.
And my parents tried to help guide me. I don't want to say that my parents weren't there, because they definitely tried to help guide me, and ended up getting into being a bank teller and thought that was the best job in the world. But like that just happened. I just happened to roll into that. There was no guidance, there was no preparation from high school for what was in the real world other than college. And so for the kids like myself who didn't go to college, either right away or at all, there was a lot of flailing that I think the high schools didn't prepare us for. And we didn't have AI back in my day, back in the 1900s. We didn't have AI.
Those ancient 1900s. I mean, a lot was different back then
Yeah.
for us Gen Xers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've talked to quite a different, you know, school demographics and different people. And there was one high school in particular that stuck out to me. And they said 30% of our kids go to college.
Mhm.
Now, in some places, that's totally the opposite, but this was in a rural community, and they were saying 30% of their kids were going to college. And yet, 90% of what they were doing all day was college preparedness, right? And they weren't being extremely successful at the college preparedness. track. But what we ended up talking about is like, what is happening for those 70% of kids who are your kids in your community? How are they being prepared for their next steps?
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear that they weren't. And like you said, they're left flailing to figure it out. They're not, and someone's not there to help them navigate their next steps. So whether it is 10% of kids, 20%, or 70% of kids in high schools who are not going to college, how are we helping prepare them to thoughtfully engage as productive citizens post K 12? Whether it's, again, military, job, trade schools, but also the kids who are going into college. How do we help them know which colleges to go to and why? Why are they picking a certain college? How does it align with their goals and aspirations? And so just thinking about the opportunity, like you said, in first grade classrooms to continue to help people understand the world outside of school and how their own strengths and gifts and curiosities align with those opportunities.
Yeah. And I graduated from college in 2009, which was a wonderful time to graduate from college and try to find a job. Just a great time. And so I bartended. I bartended all through that time. And I worked with Katie, plenty of people that had college degrees and
Mhm.
plenty of people that had master's degrees. And there's also a part of me that, like, not only do you need to be prepared for the real world, you need to be prepared for a crash. What happens if we all lose our jobs? What do you do then?
Right.
And I remember I used to think you'd watch these news stories in 2009, 2010 about these people that were unemployed for 2 years and couldn't find a job. And I would go to work every day as a bartender and I would look at the master's degrees and the bachelor's degrees that were like, hey, I gotta make a living. And so part of me is like, are we also preparing people? It's dual, right? It's
Yeah.
like, are we preparing you for your career that is going to carry you through your life, but we also preparing you to actually just be able to work,
Yeah.
right? And is that a plumber? Is that a bartender? Is that these blue collar jobs that still have to be done regardless of who's got college degrees? If you
Right.
have one or not, if the economy crashes, work still needs to happen, right? Job money still needs to be made. And that was really eye-opening to me too, of, thinking through like what was their path, right? They got pushed right into college, right out of high school. They graduated college and couldn't find jobs for years. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to think through, like, not only the college degrees and in that realm of people, but also the people that are out there just trying to make a living
Yep.
and what success looks like for both of those.
Yeah. And I think that's the flexibility, right? Like you can have your plans and things happen. And so, like you said, graduating and not great time. When I got my teaching credential, it was 2002. They were laying off all the teachers in San Diego. So similarly, like I wasn't getting a job in San Diego and I had to think differently about my plan. And so a friend was like, "Well, I'm going to go teach in Hawaii. Come teach in Hawaii. They're looking for jobs." And I thought, "Great. I'd never been there. Sounded like a good idea." But like being able to be open and flexible, I think sometimes is as important as having a really great GPA and or whatever it is.
Exactly. Because the
Uh
real world isn't just college, right? It's all there's so much more than just college in the real world, right? And to your point, you were like, oh, I've got to now think outside of the box. And so I want my kids to be prepared to think outside of the box at
yeah.
any, whether it's now or in 15 years when they're trying to find their way in life, right?
So, how do these conversations shape up for the parents that you hang out with, whether it's like at back to school nights or with your mom friends? Are they talking about these things? Like, because we're in this world, like you've been in startup worlds and been flexible, but are other parents thinking about this as flexibly, or what are their conversations about their hopes and dreams for their kids?
That's an interesting question. And I am a first generation college graduate. My parents did not go to college, very, very blue collar, but made it just fine in life. Um, and as I mentioned, I went to college a little bit later in life and graduated in 2009. But I have quite a bit of friends that were on the path of high school, college, and then you figure out your life. And they share that mentality for their children. You will do exactly as I did. And I think my husband and I, who again are both first generation college graduates, are like, let's prepare them for the real, like, let's actually get them set up for whatever it is they want to do, whether or not it's college. And I also think there's a lot of parents that put a lot of pressure on their kids at young ages because they know that people that are successful, especially in sports or in some of these um things falling.
Everything's okay over here.
Okay. I think that you know, especially sports, you know, it's fairly well known that any professional athlete started at a very young age, right? So I have a big group of friends that are very much like really hardcore about sports with their children. And
I don't know anything about that.
yeah, but my kids are younger, right? Like,
No, no, no. It's no, it is an intense world for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I think when you focus on, I think it's good. Sports are great. Organized sports are great. My son is, both my kids are in sports. I'm not anti-sports at all. I think it's well known that when you foster something pretty heavily at a young age, there is, in certain cases, a proven path of success. And I think that I know a lot of parents who truly believe that, right? I also live in a place that is pretty liberal, and kids, you know, there's this uh free range thing that happens around where I live,
Hmm.
right? Which is good. Which there's a part of me that's like, I don't necessarily consider myself a free range parent, but like there's a part of me that's like, it takes me back to my childhood,
Hmm.
right? And so we have a very interesting population of where I live. We have these people that are very hardcore about children's sports. And then we have people that are a little bit more free range and just really allow their children to kind of experience the world in their own way. I don't know what the right answer is there, right?
So big range
Yes.
of how parents are choosing to raise their kids in the world today.
Yes.
And I think whether it's sports or academics, I mean, what I continue to find is like we all want our kids to be successful, right? Like even in that range, I think that every parent you talk to is like, I want my kid to be successful. I want them to be happy. I want them to be able to hold a job, navigate the world. I don't think I've ever had a parent who didn't say those things,
Mhm.
but our view of how to get there
Is different.
often varies pretty widely. Um, so, what do you want other parents to know? Like when you think about the future of education, and when you've seen schools, a range of schools getting to work with our team and had exposure. Like, what do you want parents to know about their role and maybe what they're pushing for? I guess kind of what I'm getting at is like there's a lot of parents in the name of success push for like you just got to hunker down and get good grades and prepare them for the next grade and make sure that they're like they know how to take notes so they'll be ready for middle school and high school versus joy and learning how to learn. So what advice do you have or what do you want parents to know about raising kids today from your perspective?
My
What's your
expert
what's your
perspective.
salient, your expert advice?
You know, first and foremost, what I want to say about what I would want parents to know is that if your kid is in a public school setting and it's not working, schools can change. They can.
Can.
Not only are we seeing it in our partners, think about COVID, Katie. Schools changed quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Schools act like they can't change and there's all this red tape and there's not money. They can figure it out. And so that's the first thing I want parents to understand is that you don't, it's change is hard. Change is
Right.
hard anyway. We
But you
all know.
don't have to be happy or okay with the status quo.
You don't have to be. You do not have to be. You don't have to pull your kids out and put them in private because that may not be the solution either, right? And it's not just pushing for education for your own child. Yes, that should be your number one priority, but like let's push for education for all kids, right? Because in my personal situation, I have one child that is thriving in the elementary school setting that he's in, and one child who's not, right? And So is it the system, right? No, it's the fact that they don't know how to educate my one child's needs.
Hmm.
And I'm not settling for that, right? And part of that is being an employee here at LCC and understanding that things can be different.
Yep.
But understand that as a parent, that if your child is not happy, or if your child is not thriving, and it doesn't even have to be thriving, but like at least succeeding
Hmm.
in a school setting, there are things that can be done about that, right? And don't just throw your hands up at it and, oh, well, this is the school's too big for me to take on. This is an institution. There can be change made. The school is responsible for educating your child. And if they're not doing it, that's not okay, right? And don't be afraid to stand up against the school. I have done so, trying to be successful. Is it working? I don't know. But trying, right? And I think one of the things we talk a lot about here at LCC is agency for these children, and really teaching your children agency. I've been teaching my child who is struggling to speak up to me when they're not getting it, when it's hard, so
Hmm.
that they're not sitting there thinking, I'm stupid because I don't get this. So I'm teaching them, you have the right to say something to me, to your teacher, to the principal, if things, whether it's bullying, not getting the academic scores that are making them feel like they're successful. Because let me tell you, the school's just going to keep pushing them through, right? And if you don't, as a parent, own your child's education as well, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, and I think that advocating is important. And when I've had those opportunities, knowing that like the parents or the teachers want kids to be successful also, and sometimes they don't know what what exactly is happening or don't have all the information. So being able to collaborate and like create that space to work together is so important, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to work together, not just like we were talking earlier, not just getting text messages when there's a test or when there's an assignment due, but like where is my kid? Where how are they doing on these skills in particular? Like where can I lean in and support? Where
And
are
we
they?
get, yeah, we get one check-in a year. I don't know about every district, but in our district, we get one check-in a year, one parent-teacher conference a year. And the amount of parents that I've talked to, and not just at my school district, we love our school district, we really do. But the amount of parents that I've talked to that have been like, I didn't even know my kid was struggling,
Mm-hmm.
because the teacher didn't tell them, the kid didn't tell them, right? And so that's why I say, like, giving your child that agency to stand up and say, wait a minute, I don't get this, is okay. And teaching them to have that identity of like being okay with struggling, not being embarrassed,
Yeah.
to come to me, to come to a teacher, because we are building the foundation. These are the foundational years. We all know this. And if the foundation isn't solid, right? I mean, I think, there's a metaphor there somewhere.
Well, I think what you're saying, like, yeah, to me, it goes back to we've been having a lot of conversations about grades and report cards and and I think a lot of people are really focused on I know my kids are successful if they have an A, but that doesn't actually tell us what we think it tells us. We've
Mhm.
fooled ourselves in many ways to think that a report card or a grade or a number is satisfaction of like, okay, they're doing fine. But we really dig in to say like, what is my kid doing well? Where are they struggling? That takes more conversation. It takes more nuance. And it takes more time, and that really is a collaboration between parents and educators.
Exactly. And when I go into meet with my children's educators, I tell them, like, I fully believe that my daughter's education is my responsibility as well. You are the expert.
Yeah.
I am not an expert in education, don't even claim to be. You are the expert, but this is also my responsibility. So let's work together. And the amount of teachers that have been like, "Oh my God, thank you for saying that." Like, have been opened up by me coming to them and saying, I trust you, but we're going to do this together. They're so thankful. And I'm like, do more parents not do this? Do they just trust that the system is educating their child? It might not be.
So, last question before we go to rapid fire. What do you want educators to know from your perspective as a parent?
I would say from my perspective as a parent, that we trust you. We trust you. And not only do we trust you, but we want to hear from you, right? And not just when our kids are doing bad. We want to hear from you if our kids are doing good. And I know that might be extra few minutes of your time, but the amount of effort or the amount of joy that it gives us as parents to hear from teachers in those few minutes that you provide is priceless. And I have a little boy. I've heard from his teacher a lot. Hasn't all been good. But the few times that there was good things that came out of from his teacher, it was like it lifted my spirits,
Oh,
and so I think that I would encourage teachers to know that we do trust them and we want to support them, but a lot of parents don't know how, right? A lot of parents are just like, oh, can I come volunteer for this thing? But like, talk to us, talk to your parents, don't be afraid to let your parents know what you need. And I'm not talking about supplies, right? I'm talking about like, what can your parents do, not only for you as the teacher, but for their own for their own kids? Because honestly, a lot of parents don't know.
yeah, that's good advice. I had a teacher, still my son's coach, who called home for both Abby and Zach and just like for positive things. And it did it. It made my day, made my week. It was so neat to hear. And I will never, ever forget that. It was rare, but it made such a positive impact.
And that probably took 2 minutes of his time,
I know.
right? To make you as a parent who has almost no control over your children's education feel like things are on the right track.
Yeah. And to hear your kids are good humans, love
Yes.
having them in my class, and like, thank you. Like, that's the best report card I could ever get.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, rapid fire.
Go.
What is one thing we should stop doing in education?
Cursive. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with cursive? My daughter's like so proud of her cursive, Katie, she can't read. I'm like, cool, cool.
What's one thing we should start doing?
Um, More smaller groups,
Yeah.
more focused, smaller groups.
When you were talking about what wasn't working, I was thinking like one size doesn't fit all. Your two kids, right?
Mhm.
Like one size just does not fit all. They need different things,
Mhm.
which requires different roles. We know this. What should we keep doing?
Um, keep doing like you said, keep doing the things that get our kids out in our community. Whether it's helping volunteering somewhere or whether it's just purely exploring our community and learning about our communities, I think is so valuable.
Yes. What is something that you are focusing on learning right now in your own role or life?
How to be a good parent.
Let me know when you figure it out.
I ordered the handbook on Amazon. It'll be here any day.
Great. What is one thing that many people don't know about you?
Oh, um, that I'm dyslexic and that I have been dyslexic. I was diagnosed in third grade, similar to my daughter. And that it's something I struggle with today as much as I did in third grade. It doesn't go away.
We'll have to follow up on that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of emotion there and lots of things that we can learn and do better.
Yeah.
What is one, or you already answered that one. What's your favorite quote or saying?
I really like right now it's like this. Obviously, I have my tattoo.
So
That's
much you got it tattooed.
spelled wrong because of my dyslexia. Right now it's like this. I do like that. I also it's always darkest before the dawn. That's the one that when things are really hard as a parent or just in general, life is this society is hard. I always tell myself when I'm really in a low spot of like it's always darkest before the dawn. Yeah.
It's a good thing to keep be mindful of. What are you grateful for right now?
Oh, wow. I'm grateful for health. I'm grateful for health. I have, knock on wood. I have healthy children, you know, I have a healthy marriage, I have a healthy family, and I'm just, you know, that's something that we should never take for granted because that can change in an instant, as we know.
Absolutely. Last question. What is your hope for the future of education?
That children at all levels can be educated in a way that works. That the children who don't fit in the box can still get just as good of an education as the kid inside the box. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sandy, thank you for saying yes to hanging out with me on a Saturday afternoon. It has
Anytime.
been really fun. I adore you and all that you do, and really just appreciate your lens as a parent. There's a lot that we can all learn from.
You as well. Thank you, Katie. This was fun.